Hello everyone and welcome back to the latest, the official podcast of the Brock Press, where we take you beyond the headlines and do a deep dive into some of the many interesting articles written by our team this week. My name is Noah Nickel. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Brock Press and host of the latest, and today I'm joined by our managing editor, Holly Morrison, and editor-at-large, Jonah Dayton. How are you both doing today?
Doing well. Good to be back.
Pretty good. It's nice to be in the same room for once.
Yes, recording officially, a live recording from the Brock Press office. The first time we're back in a long time, which does feel good. First and foremost, we want to welcome everyone back to Brock. We are now also in the first week of classes, and students on residence are back at residence buildings, so things are really coming back to life here on campus, which is great to see. Another school year is upon us, and with that, we're back on the weekly grind here at the Brock Press as well. Luckily for us, there's tons of interesting stuff going on at Brock and beyond, so there's plenty to write and talk about. Speaking of which, we'll get into our first article. So the first article we're going to talk about is by Chad Ellis, our news editor. It's called BUSU has made changes to the UPass and the Student Health and Dental Plan. Holly, if you could take it away and tell us a little bit more about this article.
Yeah, for sure. So in Chad's article, he's talking about some changes that BUSU has made to the way that they're going to distribute the Universal Bus Pass, or the UPass, which is basically, the UPass isn't actually a card, it's just a sticker that you're going to get on your Brock card that lets you, swipe your card to ride the bus. They've also made a couple changes to the Student Health and Dental Plan. And, more specifically, regarding the bus pass, if you're getting a new student card, you'll get your UPass sticker already stuck on your student card. If you're a resident student, you should get your card with your sticker when you picked up your keys. For those of us who already have the UPass, who already have our Brock cards, you'll be able to get your sticker on campus at a tent that will be set up between the BUSU office and the Goodman School of Business on weekdays from 10 till 4 p.m. And that'll be running from September 7th till the 15th. Student Health and Dental Plan, also a couple new things. They're going to have the Direct to You Health Hub, which is a service that gives students access to virtual services like seeing a doctor, free prescription deliveries in Canada, and virtual COVID-19 screenings, and a whole lot more. COVID-19 screenings especially important right now. So I don't know about you guys, but I definitely use my UPass a whole lot. It gives you access to, the transit systems in Niagara, Thorold, Fort Erie, Welland.
All those exciting places to go. No, it's good. It's definitely super important, and if this on-campus stuff is going to stick this year, don't really know how that's looking, but we'll see. But if it is to stick, then yeah, definitely you need to get that UPass pronto, because that will be key for you to save some money for sure, so you're not paying for those fares, and really kind of opens up this region for you, which there is a lot to do. I know we joke a lot about Niagara region, but there's lots to see. It's just might be a little bit hidden.
Yeah, there's also just like a bit of a grace period for the first week or two where bus drivers know that students maybe haven't had a chance to get the sticker yet, so they're pretty cool about just, you still have to swipe your card on the bus, but if you just, let them know, hey, I haven't got the sticker yet, they're pretty cool about it. But yeah, if you don't have a car like me and most students here, this is how you get around.
It's pretty convenient.
The next one that we're going to talk about is one that I'm sure all of you are somewhat familiar with after this crazy year of trying to find places to live. We've dealt with some rent prices, particularly how expensive they are here in St. Catharines, some of the most expensive in the country, and that was written by our assistant news editor, Devani Shaw, but I'll give it over to Jonah to talk a little bit more about that article.
Okay, so as Devani talked about in her article, St. Catharines ranked as the 9th most expensive city in Canada per the Canadian Rent Report, and the full list is right in front of me. Not surprising, Vancouver and Toronto are 1, 2, and then the rest of the list goes Burnaby, British Columbia, Victoria, Barrie, Kelowna, Oshawa, Kitchener, Ottawa, and then St. Catharines, and the median price for a one-bedroom apartment is $1,360 in St. Catharines, and for comparison, Vancouver was $2,000 at number 1, and Toronto was just under $1,800 at 2. But I wanted to throw it out to particularly Holly, because Noah lives here, he's from here anyways, but As Holly and I are both not from St. Catharines, with all the up in the airness of this upcoming semester being online or being in person, I know it was a bit of a struggle to think about rent. Is it worth finding a place to live in here and paying 8 months, 12 months of rent if we're going to move to online in 2 months? So what do you think about that, and has that issue arose in the last year plus for you?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm from Brantford. I know you're from Toronto, so
I used to overprice everything.
Yeah, our perspectives on the prices of things are definitely different. Yeah, I'd say it wasn't much of an issue for me. I've got pretty good landlords, which is kind of surprising for a student town. So I rent a room. I don't pay a whole lot, and I do live here in the summer. I work here in the summer, so it wasn't really. I didn't really think about going back to my parents' house to do school. I also that was just not a thing. I didn't want to move back in with my parents. No offense, Mom and Dad. But yeah, that wasn't something that I super considered. But I did definitely. I definitely feel very lucky because I've had the student house that me and 4 roommates live in since our second year, and the rent hasn't gone up on us once. So I felt, super lucky about that. We have a 12-month lease. We sign it every year in April, and the rent hasn't gone up on us once. So hopefully I'm not jinxing that.
I don't know your roommates, but, I mean, how many years is that? 3 years?
Yeah, we've been living together for 3 years.
That's impressive.
I think I picked some good roommates in my first year.
Apparently. Well, this, the price here, as Jonah said, is for 1 bedroom. It's the median price for 1 bedroom rentals. So definitely nothing like most of you are experiencing as students. You're renting a bedroom as opposed to a 1 bedroom apartment. So these prices are definitely higher, but it kind of reflects the trend. And even Devani mentioned that in her article that it reflects it's based and affected by the housing market, which throughout Canada has been insane in the last couple years, but certainly here in St. Catharines, I've seen that a lot with families selling houses and trying to move into new ones. Friends of mine getting married and moving to their.
Wait, hold on, Noah. You're like 23. How many of your friends are getting married?
One's already married and one's engaged, ready to get married next summer. So a lot around here. That's kind of in the water in this area. It's like low 20s, early 20s, a lot of people. So yeah, in all these experience, like tangential experience I've seen of people trying to buy homes and sell homes and whatnot, like prices are absolutely ludicrous. I mean, people pay like $600,000-$700,000 for essentially bungalows.
In Toronto, that's $2 million.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why we're low. That's why we're 9th on the list, not number 2. But it's been really insane. Like my family sold our house last summer, and it had gone up like 50%, or it might have even been like 75% in value in 5 years from the last time they had it evaluated to the time they sold it. So it's really making no sense, and it's really been tough on everyone. But I think it's totally reflected in the rent prices, right? Because you have so many people buying them for as investments, which if you're looking to invest your money makes a lot of sense, because clearly there's the turnover is hand over fist at the moment, but it's really driving students out of here, and it's definitely driving away new families and new people looking to settle down and buy homes.
Yeah, I know what I did last year when we went home in March of 2020. I paid like a few months of rent after that, but once I was like, okay, we're going to be online for a while now. Like Holly, I had pretty reasonable landlords, and they were cool with me breaking my lease. So I did move back to Toronto and save thousands of dollars last year while I was online. But again, this year now I'm back, and again, pretty hands-off landlords now. So like Holly said, I'm 2 for 2, and would like to keep it that way.
That's the thing. It's really going to be dependent on people's landlords and their situations, and how lenient and helpful they are. If stuff really goes downhill again and we end up going back online, which is completely up in the air. And full disclosure, we have no knowledge of that happening. This is all purely speculative, but just by the case numbers, and we have some reason to suspect things might not go as planned throughout the whole year. So, but yeah, just based on that, I know people are definitely worried when it comes to signing leases and how they're going to get out of those situations if need be, if the need arose for that, and how they can just make that work if we are back online. But even Devani's article mentions, she quoted a student in there who was talking about just going online and not coming back, and it seems like that's becoming a more viable option with more online courses. And if you've adjusted well over the last 18 months, it might not be a bad solution for you. And the last articles are all kind of dedicated to the federal election, which we want to give some coverage just because we're a little late to the game coming back, kind of in the midpoint of that campaign. So Holly wrote about it for the opinion section, Hatham, our general assistant, wrote about it for news, and I wrote a little bit about it as well in my editorial. So all kind of covering it from different angles, which I think is helpful. Hatham's article really gives a good overview of the 6 major parties, some really introductory background on things that they stand for, and also kind of where they stand in terms of the polls at this point during this election. So that's a good one to start if you really are new to this stuff and looking to make maybe a more informed vote and get a little bit more involved in this election than you might have in the past. Holly's article, speaking of voting, all about voting, all about why you should vote. It really gives you a good case for all the different types of voters, whether you are a non-voter, so also non-voters, the disaffected voter, but also the newbie who might be a little intimidated by the whole process. So there's really something for everyone with Holly's article if you are interested in voting and or not, and trying to make the case for why and how you should do that. And then mine goes a little more in the weeds, as it always does, as I'm quite the political nerd. I live and breathe this stuff, and I especially love following elections. Even just from the outside, it can be a lot of fun for me. I know that's not the case for most people.
I remember last year at one point we were in the office and you told us that election night is like the Super Bowl for poli-sci majors. Can you confirm that?
I can confirm that we've gone to bars together and gotten food and drinks and watched election results come in more than once. Yeah.
The similarities, though, I mean, there's colors, right? the Seinfeld bit of, sports fandom, you're just really cheering for clothes, and elections, you're cheering for colors.
That's true. There you go.
Yeah, I want the guy who never wears a red tie or the guy who never wears a blue tie. That's what I want.
And the one who wears a Canada flag lapel pin and the one who doesn't. Yeah, no, that's true. We definitely do that, and I'm definitely going to be doing that September 20th. Although now pandemic elections have been really not good for that format because the friggin' results come in like a week later because it's so many mail-in ballots. But we're really getting off topic with that. So whatever. All that aside, all that making fun of me aside, and my fellow political nerds, get into some election talk, which I know Jonah's really, really excited about. So we'll start with you. How have you been following any of the election, Jonah, even though I know the answer?
Listen, I did my 3 articles yesterday on production day, but like he said, with Hatham's article, which was a good place to start, that's me. That's where I'm starting. I'm quite new to this, and I think the most reading I've done on politics is in A Song of Ice and Fire, the Game of Thrones books. So that's pretty much what I've done politically, but both Hatham's and Holly's articles were sort of where I'm at my level, and then Noah's, I read it, but it's a little beyond what, my capabilities at this point. But that's why, we have these articles. It caters. We try to cater to, the rookies like me or the Super Bowl bar party goers like Noah. And I guess Holly's opinion piece, I mean, she'll talk more about it, it summed up, like, if you're, like me, who isn't very political, doesn't pay too much attention to this stuff, she lays out all the reasons why it's important just to, I guess, get acclimated even a little bit, so your decision, you're not just picking out of a hat.
Yeah, my article is just basically, I kind of did it like BuzzFeed style. It was just kind of like the 4 kinds of students who won't vote this year and like why they should. So, I sort of talked about, the person who doesn't care who the next prime minister is going to be. And it's like, well, I'm not going to tell you that you should care, because if you don't care, I'm going to assume that other people have told you to care, so I'm not going to waste my breath on that. But, if you don't care, you need to, secure what I think are your most important rights as a Canadian citizen, which is your right to complain when whoever's in charge screws up. If you don't vote, you can't really complain. And then, there's people who have never voted who don't know who to vote for. And speaking of BuzzFeed, there's a CBC quiz that you can take that's linked in the article. You just tell them your opinions on certain issues, and they'll put you on the political compass. And if you vote for the party that's closest to you on the political compass, you're making a pretty informed vote. And, there's the disillusioned voters who think no matter who they vote for, things are going to suck anyway. And in that case, what I said was it's better to go in and spoil your ballot and have that choice be recorded than to have no choice recorded, because, at least then you're doing something, and then, I don't know, maybe you even get to draw a funny picture on the ballot, and that feels pretty good if you don't care about politics. So that's sort of what I touched on in my opinion piece, but I know that Noah has much stronger opinions about the state of Canadian politics than I do.
Yeah, my article goes into that a little more. What I have been following has really been pretty ugly this election, and I don't think I'm alone or special, very special in saying that. There's been a lot of really just absurd behavior from people on the campaign trail, not from politicians so much, but mostly from protesters, I guess they'd be called, but they're really just kind of agitating based on premises that are like wildly out of step with what's actually going on and what's actually the reality of living in Canada right now. It's really just been an absurd election on that front, but surprisingly really tame from the parties, I would say, all things considered. Like, there hasn't been a ton of fighting in that sense, which is usually what people are complaining about, but now it's like death threats and literally attacking people like candidates and volunteers at the doors. So it's really just been, and even that's here in Niagara. I mean, I've heard of a few instances of people getting shouted racial slurs at them, and someone actually being assaulted, a Liberal volunteer out in Lincoln area or Vineland or one of those out on the west side of Niagara. So yeah, it's been pretty messy to watch this election, and pretty sad, which is what kind of fueled the hate fire of my article this week. But have you guys talked at all, with friends or family about voting or about the election at all?
Well, yeah, I've talked about my friends. We've all gotten our, except for me, actually, we've all gotten our little voter information cards in the mail, so we're gonna go vote. We're all pretty bummed that you can't vote on campus again this year. That was super convenient last time. So it sucks that they got rid of that, but, that's the extent that I've talked about voting with my friends and family mostly.
I did not know that you could vote on campus last year. I did it when I went back home to Toronto, so that, missed that vote, but... yeah, that would be convenient, and you would think if they want to encourage students to vote, make it easy for them, right?
Yeah, sadly that's on Elections Canada. They really dropped the ball, and university student unions and newspapers have let them know. We were, again, a little late to the party because that was kind of being talked about just at the start of the election, because that's when Elections Canada kind of put out their info on all that. But yeah, it's definitely... They're definitely dropping the ball in that. They were going in the right direction. I heard numbers weren't what they wanted them to be in 2019, but as Holly has said, we are a dismal turnout kind of grouping or age demographic. So, you're starting from literally the bottom of the barrel. So I think it needs definitely a few cycles before they can, call it a dead program or not worth the time or money. But yeah, that needs to definitely come back in the future. I know we've had local elections. I voted here once That would have been 2018. So that should hopefully come back, because now we get to vote next year as well for Ontario and municipal elections. So just a lot of voting in our 4 years at Brock here, more than anyone really should be doing, but it's how it is, I guess.
Yeah, I'm getting real tired of voting. Not that it takes a whole long time or that it's super hard, but it's just one more thing to add to my to-do list that feels like I didn't really need to do at this point.
So next year you're gonna write what the 4 people who want to vote and why you shouldn't, because it's too many stupid elections in too short a time.
Yeah, I think we'll all protest the election by not. The students won't vote, and that's definitely going to make a difference.
A whole 10 votes on each riding will not count. They'll be devastated. And I just had kind of one last point. So I mentioned this is really a very hate-filled and toxic election campaign, mostly from just kind of citizens voicing their concerns, quote unquote, but really just looking for an excuse to shout and scream at politicians by the looks of it. But just wondering if you guys have any thoughts on, why that might be the case, why you think people are really lashing out this election possibly more than they have ever in Canadian history.
It feels like this is quite a big year for protesting and gathering and picketing. I'm not familiar really with this topic, but the whole COVID year plus has been filled with protesters, and I don't know, I feel like people are in the mood for it.
Yeah, not to be the person who blames the internet for everything, but I'm gonna say this is kind of on the internet. People, stuck in their houses for a year plus, nothing to do but to read, QAnon theories. It definitely, can make people who might even, be reasonable or have been reasonable in the past, can definitely make them fearful or, restless. And I just think that sucks for the state of, politics, because I don't want, the politicians representing me to be the people who are, comfortable in a mudslinging match. I want, reasonable elected officials. I don't want the crazy people in charge, the ones who are, if they get a rock thrown at them, they're going to throw it back. I don't want those kind of people in charge. Politics, as I know them, are supposed to be reasonable.
Yeah, I mentioned that in the article a little bit too. You're really going to be drawing out the crazies from the woodwork, and we've seen that with a handful of parties for sure. Some of the candidates they've nominated are losers, and if you are if you're unhappy with how government is acting now, and I'm not one to pull punches. The Liberals have had a lot of scandal that seems to come from just pure political novice in a lot of, particularly in the Prime Minister's office, but kind of throughout his government benches, and in himself as well. And if you're upset by that, the worst thing you can do is make the political scene more toxic and less inviting to more level-headed people. You're just going to encourage even further incompetence, because like Holly said, you're going to get the people who are throwing the rocks back, and that will only mean politics and government will get worse if you think it's on a bad trajectory now. And that does it for this episode of The Latest. Thank you, Holly and Jonah, for joining me today to talk about these great articles, and thank you all for listening. We really appreciate it. Remember that you can find the full articles that we talked about here today and many more by going over to our website. That's www.brockpress.com. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. On top of following us on social media, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. You can find us on Anchor.fm, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, and Spotify. Just be sure to look up The Latest, The Brock Press podcast, and you should find us no problem. You can also find the podcast on our YouTube channel and on our website. With all that said, thanks again, and we'll see you next week for another episode of The Latest.